My new apartment has one rule: cover every mirror by midnight. I'm typing this on a library computer at 4 AM because I left my laptop an hour ago and have no plans on going back for it. If you're reading this and looking for a cheap apartment in the Pacific Northwest, avoid the Greystone district at all costs. Don't sign the lease, don't take the keys, and for the love of everything holy, if you see an addendum that reads Midnight Guest Protocol, get the hell out. I thought I was slick. I thought I was snagging the steal of a century. An $800 a month 2-bedroom loft. I didn't care that the property manager, a twitchy woman who I'll refer to as Mrs. G, refused to make eye contact when she thrust the pen at me, nor when she said the plumbing gargled at night. I signed my name, I took the keys, and then she handed me the welcome kit. It wasn't fruit. It was a toolbox containing 3 rolls of industrial gaffer tape, a pile of thick blackout curtains, and a single sheet of paper with bold, capitalized, bizarre instructions. The rules are non-negotiable, she warned me. Eviction is the least of your worries if you disobey them. I laughed in her face. I'm not laughing now. I'm a junior architect, which is a fancy way of saying I work insane hours for poverty wages. I needed to be within walking distance of the firm, and these lofts seemed perfect. The floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, and industrial chic looked like the interior of a high-end design magazine. During the showing, all the windows were covered with the thickest drapes I'd ever seen, and even the bathroom mirror, a giant antique bolted to the wall, was shrouded in a black sheet. Mrs. G explained it away as the previous tenant being a light-sensitive hypochondriac. But when it came to signing the lease, she flipped to page 14. Clause 7, she whispered. The Midnight Guest Protocol. It read as follows. Tenant agrees that between 2:14 a.m. and 4:44 a.m., all reflective surfaces in the unit must be covered. This includes, but is not limited to, mirrors, windows, televisions, and unpolished metallic surfaces. Failure to comply shall be construed as an invitation. Management is not liable for any physical or psychological distress incurred due to an invitation. I asked her if this was a joke, if the building was haunted. Mrs. G did not laugh. She just tapped the paper with a chipped nail. This is a term of occupancy. The reduced rent accounts for the inconvenience. Do you want the apartment or not? I was broke and desperate. I signed the lease. I assumed I'd play along with their stupid superstition for a few months, save some money and get the hell out. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in contract law and cheap rent. The first night, I moved my stuff in. I was thoroughly embarrassed, but did my rounds covering the reflective surfaces. I set an alarm on my phone for 1:50 a.m., got around the apartment and pulled down all the curtains, threw a towel over the bathroom mirror, and spun the computer monitor around. It felt like a toddler playing hide and seek. The first week was incredibly uneventful. A bit boring, really. I would do my rounds, and then drift off to sleep to the muffled sound of traffic. The walls are very thick, concrete and brick, so once the curtains are drawn, you're in your own sealed-off little world. But about midway through the second week, things started to shift. Though I can't really explain how I know. It was this intense feeling, the kind where you feel the prickles on your neck when someone's staring at you. Just 100 times worse. Around 3 a.m. one night, I got thirsty. The kind of half-awake, stumbling to the kitchen to get a glass of water thirsty. I skipped turning on the light, navigating by the ambient street light filtering through the crack between the drapes and the window. I grabbed a clean glass off the dish rack and turned on the tap. When I raised the glass to my lips, I froze. My microwave. I'd completely forgotten the door. It was black glass and shiny, a perfect mirror of the dark kitchen behind me. Except it wasn't. In the reflection in the microwave was a figure, tall and incredibly thin. It was wrapped in what looked like damp bandages, and the angle of its head seemed impossible, its skull nearly resting on its shoulder. It was looking at me. The glass slipped from my fingers and shattered on the floor. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest, waiting to be attacked. There was no one in the kitchen. I looked back at the microwave. The only reflection was of my dark, empty kitchen. I chalked it up to sleep paralysis, a hallucination induced by stress and suggestion. Immediately, I taped a sheet of cardboard over the microwave door. I cleaned up the glass with shaking hands, slicing my finger open. I didn't sleep again that night. Since then, I went militant. Not just draping the mirrors, I gaff taped them. I taped over the shiny chrome on my toaster. I taped over the glass front of my oven. I even put a matte screen cover over my laptop and my phone, and I still shut it down and buried it under my pillow way before 2:14 a.m. I started doing research by going to the city archives. The lofts were a textile factory back in the 1920s that caught fire in 1928. 12 people died in a room lined with mirrors. Then I looked into the tenants before me. They didn't just move out. I found a police report for the apartment 3 doors down. Domestic disturbance call. They found the tenant screaming in the bathroom, clawing at the mirror, saying, "It's not me! That's not me in there!" I should have left then. I should have paid the lease break fee and slept in my car. But humans are stubborn creatures. I told myself I had this under control. I had a system. As long as I stuck to the rules, the midnight guest could not enter. The lease stated that an uncovered reflective surface was an invitation. If I did not invite it, it could not enter. It had rules. But I forgot one detail. The most dangerous reflective surface is not a mirror or a window. Tonight, I had a deadline on a huge stadium rendering for work. I was running on caffeine and sheer anxiety. I stayed up late and the time hit 2 a.m. I saved the project, shut down the computer, and did my rounds. Big mirror covered. Checked the windows. Checked the appliances. Felt safe. I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth, leaving the hall light off and a dim night light on so that the chrome of the faucet wouldn't unexpectedly flash and startle me into catching my reflection. I spat in the sink, watching the water swirl down the drain. But then the water stopped draining. The water gathered in the white porcelain bowl of the sink. It rose, dark and still. And there it was, a perfectly circular, reflective surface. I stared down at it. I couldn't tear my eyes away. I saw my own face in the reflection of the still water. The reflection was wrong. My reflection was not looking down into the sink. It was looking straight ahead at me. And smiling. It wasn't a human smile. It stretched way too far. The eyes in the reflection were entirely black. Not the normal black with a white dot of a pupil. Just an abyss where an eye should be. I tried to step away. I tried to scream. But I was frozen. The guest wasn't behind me this time. It was in the reflection. And it was rising. The water in the sink began to ripple, not from the drain, but from the center, as though something were pushing up from below. My reflection's hands began to emerge not down into the sink, but up out of the water. Icy cold fingers gripped my throat. They felt solid, like iron. They felt so cold against my skin, I could feel the chill penetrate my shirt, smelling faintly of stagnant rot and copper. I was pulled downward. My face was only inches from the surface of the water as those 2 black holes in the reflection of my own face fixed on mine, and a voice resonated not in the room, but in my own skull. "Thank you." I thrashed, kicked, my arm flailed, and knocked over the heavy porcelain toilet tank lid. Without thought, I swung, smashing the toilet tank lid down onto the sink. The ceramic cracked and the sink broke apart, water spraying everywhere, drenching my legs. The reflection shattered into 1,000 glittering wet pieces. The grip around my throat released immediately. I tumbled onto the tile floor, gasping for air, coughing. Silence. The water drained away into the cracked porcelain below where the pipe had burst. I crawled backward, crab-like, out of the bathroom and slammed the door shut. I didn't stop. Grabbing my wallet and bolted out the apartment door, leaving it wide open behind me. I ran down 6 flights of stairs, because I couldn't bear the idea of stepping into the mirrored elevator. Out on the street, it was pouring with rain. I stood on the sidewalk, my clothes soaked through to the bone. And it was then I realized what I had really done wrong. I looked down at a puddle on the sidewalk. No reflection. I looked in a shop window. Nothing. Checked the side view mirror of a parked car. Empty. I don't cast a reflection anymore. Well, not one that I can see anyway. But in the corner of my eye, I see something. The midnight guest. Walking where I'm walking, a split second behind, getting closer to the surface with each moment. Whatever it was that crawled out of that sink, I don't think it was just me. And the thing that's tailing me? I think it's just waiting for me to stare at a mirror long enough so it can fully emerge. So I'm warning you. If you want to rent a loft in Greystone, don't sign if you see that clause. And if you're reading this on your phone right now, please don't keep staring when the screen goes black. I work the night shift at a hospital, and the child I treated was the only survivor of a brutal crime. I thought that night shift would be quiet until I saw Emily being rushed into the hospital on a stretcher, pushed by 3 police officers. It rained like hell that night. She was 13, maybe 14 years old, and had a fragile body covered in dry dirt and dark blood. Her left arm showed a deep bruise spreading from wrist to elbow. There were abrasions on her legs and shoulder, like she had rolled across rough ground. The girl was unconscious and completely soaked from the rain. "What happened?" I asked, gripping the side of the stretcher as we moved toward the emergency room. The officer in front of us, a heavy-set man with a tired face, kept flipping through a small notebook without looking up. His badge read Harris, Detective. "The girl called 911 reporting a break-in," he said. "She locked herself in her bedroom. When we arrived, we found her unconscious on the ground outside, in the backyard. But the worst was inside that house." "What do you mean?" I asked, cutting the sleeve of her shirt with my scissors. "It wasn't a pretty scene." He finally looked at me, his tone calm, like someone who sees this kind of thing every week. "The girl's parents were dead in the bedroom. Bruises around the neck, broken nails and signs of a struggle. There was water everywhere too. We still don't get that part." I pressed gauze against the wound on her arm. The skin was scraped and split in places, swollen from impact, consistent with a fall. "It looks like she fell from something," I said. "Yeah," Harris replied. "Her room is on the 2nd floor right above where we found her. She probably tried to get away from someone." "And did you catch the one who did this?" Harris hesitated, like he was weighing his words, solving an equation in his head. "Well," he said, "things don't make much sense right now. No signs of forced entry. No indication anyone else was inside the house. The family had security cameras outside, so that should tell us something." I secured a temporary wrap around her arm and nodded to the nurse who came to help me. We moved Emily into an observation room, and there stood just the 3 of us, me, Harris, and the nurse setting up the IV and checking her vitals. While I worked, Harris stepped away from the bed. He stood near the wall, writing frantically in his notebook. Emily then moved for the first time, still unconscious, and a low sound slipped from her mouth. "Big brother is here," she murmured as if in a fever. "Don't let him in." I must have had almost 2 cups of coffee before the nurse called my name, her voice excited. "She's awake." I expected to find shock from her after she woke up. Instead, Emily sat upright in bed, perfectly still. Her eyes were fixed on the window, where rain was still falling like bricks against the glass. Her hands were clenched tight in her lap. Detective Harris was again inside the room, notebook in hand, standing uncomfortably close to her. "What are you doing?" I asked him. "She's not ready to take questions." "Tell me what happened." He ignored me. "You called 911 and said you were scared of a big brother or something." His pen hovered, waiting. Emily said nothing and kept on staring out the window. "Where was he standing?" Harris continued. "Did he touch you? Did you see him hurt your parents?" I stepped between them. "That's enough. She's a patient and a minor." Harris closed the notebook with a quiet snap, then left. I couldn't understand why he was treating a victim that directly. Emily kept staring at the window, her fists still closed. I checked her arm again. The swelling was already going down, and the nurse crouched beside the bed and followed Emily's gaze. "Would you like something to eat?" the nurse asked softly. "My shoulder hurts." She finally spoke, not answering the question. I checked it, and it was a mild bruise. "Nothing serious," I said, adjusting the pillow beneath her shoulder. She relaxed a little, so I asked if she felt any other pain and told her her hand would be fine soon. She nodded, and I took her silence as a response to trauma. Some people cry, others shut down. For a moment, I saw her glance toward a few magazines and books stacked at the far end of the room, forgotten there by a previous patient no one had bothered to clear out. I picked up the books and brought them to her. She opened one of them right away, curiosity lighting her face for the first time. "Do you read a lot?" I asked. She nodded and told me a little about the books she had read, how she really enjoyed science fiction, and how the new school her father made her attend didn't have a library as big as the last one. I didn't ask about her parents, but there was tension there she didn't put into words. "My big brother was the only one that gave me books," she continued suddenly. "That's when I read my first science fiction." "Who is this big brother you mentioned?" I asked. Emily stayed quiet for a few seconds before answering. "He's my brother," she said. "He's not here anymore, but he still talks to me a lot. Sometimes he is nice." "Sometimes?" "Sometimes he is not nice. Sometimes he does bad things, especially when he sees that I'm angry." "Like what?" She didn't look up. "Like what he did today to Dad and Mom." I talked with Emily a little longer, although she didn't come back to the murders. Then I stepped into the hallway. Found Detective Harris standing by the nurse's station, hunched over his notebook. His eyes were wide, focused, almost manic. He waved me over. "The cameras don't show anyone entering the house," he said. "None of it makes sense. I need to get her statement." "She mentioned a big brother a few times," I said. "Maybe you could start with that." "Yeah, same one from the 911 call," he replied. "But it doesn't add up. Only 3 people lived in that house, and we're finding some concerning details about the girl." "Like what?" "We found Emily has been in long-term psychiatric care since she was 9, and she was expelled from her last school for a violent incident. I'm trying to reach her therapist and the school to understand what happened." My stomach tightened. I didn't like where this was going. "She's just a kid," I said. "She wouldn't have the physical strength to harm 2 adults." "I'm not saying she did it," Harris shot back. "But kids can be dangerous. You have no idea what I've seen on this job, especially kids with the kind of issues I think Emily has." He paused, rubbing his face. "I don't understand exactly how it happened either, but something about this big brother thing doesn't add up." His phone rang, thankfully. "1 second," he said, walking away. I agreed something felt wrong, but I pushed it aside. I had other patients waiting. It took me an hour or so before I returned to Emily's room. She was alone now. The rain hadn't let up. She was still reading quietly, and I wondered if I had ever seen a child handle grief so calmly. I stepped closer, asked about the book, and checked the injury on her arm again. A few minutes later, Detective Harris stormed in, eyes sharp. Emily lowered her head when she saw him. "Did you try to strangle a girl at your school, Emily?" he asked, standing too close to the bed. "Is that why you were expelled?" Emily's fists tightened, and she stood silent. "And this big brother who hurt your parents?" Harris continued. "Dr. Janik told me you often talk to him when you're alone. Isn't that right?" He leaned in, resting his arms on the edge of the bed. "Tell me what really happened that night, Emily. Then we can help you." "He did it," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "My big brother..." "Enough of this nonsense!" Harris snapped. "Enough!" I raised my voice, stepping between them. "She's in shock, and you can't interrogate her here. I'm no lawyer, but I'm pretty sure this isn't okay. Harris pulled his hands back and took a step away. Andre, right? He continued, his voice softer now. Your big brother's name. The one who died 5 years ago in the lake. I remember the news. Emily froze at the sound of the name. Who's Andre? I asked. Her older brother, Harris said, flipping open his notebook again. Drowned at Lake Sammamish with a group of friends one summer. A tragedy. Emily, you've been hearing him ever since, haven't you? Tears finally began to fall from Emily's eyes. This isn't a police station, I said, my voice tight with anger. Get out, now. No, let him stay, Emily interrupted me, lifting her face. I'll tell him everything that happened. I told her she didn't have to say anything yet, that it would be better to wait for a representative. Her grandmother was on her way from a nearby town and should be here within the hour. She shook her head. I could do this, she said. I'll tell it now. I have to. I swallowed hard as I caught the look on Harris's victorious face. I told them I had other patients to attend to and left the room with a bitter taste in my mouth, leaving the two of them alone. A few minutes later, I was in the break room, halfway through my third cup of coffee of the night, listening to the rain pound outside. Thunder rolled past the windows, and a few lights flickered before suddenly going out. The blackout lasted less than a minute before the backup generator kicked in. When the lights returned, some of them were dimmer than usual, flickering as the system stabilized. As I walked back through the patient corridor where Emily was, I noticed something wrong immediately. Her room was completely dark. I opened the door and felt something cold and wet soak into my shoes. There were a couple of inches of water covering the entire floor. Emily was still on the bed, her face locked in an expression of terror I don't know how to describe. She looked at me like she was desperately trying to warn me of something, but she didn't need to say anything. I saw it on the floor. Detective Harris. He lay in a spreading pool of water, his body still. His eyes were bulged, staring at nothing, and his neck bent at an angle so extreme it made my stomach turn. My instinct was to scream for help, but Emily spoke first. Stay quiet, she warned me, or he'll touch you. I wanted to ask who, but the words wouldn't come out. And then I realized I was about to get my answer whether I wanted it or not. I felt something behind me, pressed against the wall near the door I'd just entered through. Its shadow stretched across the floor, tall and wide. Slowly, I turned. It was pale, towering over me by more than 5 feet. Its shape was vaguely human, but its limbs were too long, too thin. There was no hair, no clothing. Water dripped from its body, and its torso was tangled with algae and freshwater plants. Its eyes were white, empty and unblinking. Don't hurt him, Andre, Emily whispered to that thing. Please, he's a good one. I'll go with you this time. It didn't respond. It just kept staring at my petrified body. Emily spoke to me again, her voice firm now. Walk slowly to the door. He won't hurt you if you do just that. I can't just leave you with it, I said, using the last bit of courage I had left. A low, wet growl filled the room. The thing didn't like that, and every cell in my body told me it wanted to do my neck exactly what it had done to Harris. He won't hurt me, she said. He just wants to protect me. Stay with me. I knew then I couldn't do anything. Staying would only get me killed, so I did what she said. Step by step, I moved toward the door, turned the handle, and stepped back into the hospital hallway. The thing allowed me to do it, its wide eyes following me every inch of the way. But immediately after I got out, I ran. I ran like I never had before, straight to the head nurse's station, shouting for her to call hospital security and the police. Then I went back toward Emily's room, my legs weak with guilt for leaving her behind. I left the door open when I fled, so I peeked inside carefully, trying to get a better look at the thing. Emily was no longer on the bed. I stepped inside. Emily wasn't in the room. Neither was that thing. On the bed, resting on the blanket where she had been sitting, was the book I had given her. The window she had stared at all night was now open, rain blowing in. Wide open. And those were: my new apartment has one rule: cover every mirror by midnight, by the idiot's boss. And I work the night shift at a hospital, and the child I treated was the only survivor of brutal crime, by accomplished low 7889. 2 horrifying encounters, both different in an interesting kind of way. Would you have survived both? It's always an important question to ask. I've been Nate at night. I really hope you sleep tight. Take care out there. So, I'm kind of sneaking this in at the end of the video because I figure it's quite important to mention this to everybody. I mean, the members are obviously getting their own kind of version as well, but this is important. So, I'm going to be kind of focusing more on my projects because I feel like I'm starting to reach some important points where I really need to double down and refocus certain efforts. And I feel like, sadly, some of the traction on the channel is kind of confused and muddled, and I'm not really pushing it in the direction I want it to be. So I'm going to focus a lot more on things that I think are going to be good, some interesting ideas that I'm going to play around with on this main channel. So it might take me a little bit of time to kind of get the flow of things, but even puzzles, there will even be puzzles. There will be certain things to kind of solve, and certain things that are all connected to probably one of my projects especially. And I'm really excited about that. I don't want to spoil too much here, simply because I'm not quite ready to do that. Members will get a little bit of a sneak peek of certain things that are going to be happening, but, you know, they're paying for that privilege, so I think that's fair enough. And again, it's because not all of it's complete, nor quite ready to push public-wise and stuff, so. But it will begin. It will start before we know it. I don't know exactly when. I don't have a full timeline or time frame in mind, but I feel like I'm getting close to kicking things off, and I'm really excited about that. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel so far, and yeah, we'll. I'm still kind of doing the job hunt at the minute as well, because that's kind of my primary goal at the moment, is to really sort out my financial situation, because that's important. You know what I mean? I gotta be able to pay the bills. I gotta be able to survive. I gotta get into a better situation mentally, financially, etc., right? And so that's why it's not been super busy here. That's why it's not been crazy amazing. I mean, you've seen production value has gone up somewhat in some aspects. I mean, it's not amazing. I'm trying to do a lot of things on my own because I can't really afford to pay anybody to do anything. So it's been a lot of learning and a lot of time-consuming efforts. But yeah, we'll see how things go in the future. But yes, this will probably be the last story for a while until I start kicking off things. And then, who knows, maybe things will get a lot busier. I think it's going to be really interesting. Mainly because there's the project will have ARG elements. That's all I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to give you. Okay? That's as far as I'm going. With my project, I mean. Anyway, we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so very much.